Peacock and this is Getting to Woodworking. Now I have to say, last time I was filling the holes in the back of the tabletop with some coloured filler, but it didn't work out too well. I didn't like it, and so I'm going to go for a painted finish to the back of the tabletop. And as you can see, I've put some primer on already. I've marked out the two rails for a simple cross-halving joint, and I'm pairing knife walls in the waist. The basic cross-halving joint is a simple joint for joining two similar components at right angles in the same plane. I first mark the thickness of each component around the other one at the point at which I want them to intersect. Then I scribe in lines at the midpoints and mark in the waste that needs to be removed. To remove the waste, I saw down the sides and then chop away the middle. To cut the cross-halving, you should be using a back saw like this tenon saw or Japanese pool saw, but in the spirit of this build, once again I'm going to be using a combination saw, and I'll be staying just shy of the lines and cleaning up with some chisels. Using a sharp chisel, we can just pare the side of those cuts now to bring them back to the knife lines. And it's always worth bringing in the connecting part and just checking that we're not going too far. After some careful paring, you should end up with a structure like this, which is nice and rigid and flat and ready to accept our legs. Now we can glue these together for a permanent fixture, but I'm going to make this a knockdown table, and as such I'm going to use a fitting in here. I've got a barrel nut and a bolt. That will go in from the bottom with the barrel nut in the top rail. So my first job is, whilst this is all together, to drill a hole centrally through here, almost all the way through. Now ideally you'll drill this hole at a pillar drill to ensure you're dead accurate, nice and perpendicular, but if you're just starting out you might not have one, so I'm going to do it without and show you how I managed to do that. I want to start by boring a hole that's big enough to take the head of this bolt. For that I'm going to use a brace and bit. I'll start the hole off first of all with an awl. Now I'll just get established with a couple of screw threads in. Now to help me keep this going in perpendicular, I'm going to use a tri-square here, which I can eye up against the drill bit. That keeps me right in this direction. I've got another one here, and that will keep me right in that direction. And that's great. Now we just need to bore a hole almost all the way through the joint and put a cross hole in for the barrel nut. I just rest the tip of the drill on the bench, then put a tape round slightly lower than the joint. That'll tell me when I've got down far enough. I've chosen my position for the barrel nut, about 3/5 of the way up in this upper section of the joint. I've lined up my hole. It's gone very slightly off centre. As long as I've got it lined up, it should be fine. Mark the centre of my hole, and this time I'm going to be drilling right through, so I've put a backer board underneath to protect my bench. So I've got that aligned now, and hopefully when I put my joint together the bolt will go back in again. To attach the top I'm going to use these pan head screws. These counterbored and oversized holes will allow for any expansion or contraction of the tabletop. I'm just getting set up to glue the leg now. I've got some PVA adhesive, and what I'm going to be doing is taking each leg in turn. Got the two parts. The longer part I'm going to put in place against the rail, flat on the bench so the joint's nice and tight. Got a tight joint line there, and it's flush on the bottom. Then I'm going to take a clamp that in place, apply some glue to the inside face of the other half, the shorter half, and then use the joint itself to line these two pieces up. Apply a clamp at the bottom and then a few clamps along its length. As soon as that's clamped up, I can release the clamp at the bottom and set this aside to dry. So I've got all four of my legs laminated now, these three here, and I've got one in the vise which I'm just cleaning up the glue squeeze out using a card scraper. Now all the information you need to know about card scrapers is on my other YouTube channel and on my website, so I'll leave some links in the description for that. And not forgetting glue squeeze out in the joint area. Now we can glue our legs onto our rails, and this is an open joint, there's no mechanical fixing here, so when we clamp it we need to make sure we pull those joint lines up nice and tight. With the leg frames glued up, the first thing I'm going to do is knock back these sharp corners with some 240 grit paper on an MDF block. We needed to keep those up till now so that we get a nice tight joint line. But now all the gluing up's done, we can tackle those exposed edges and just make it softer to the touch and also far less likely to splinter. Whenever you build something that's got more than 3 legs, you're likely to have a slight wobble on it. This leg's not quite touching there, but I didn't finish off the ends of the legs properly because I knew this would always be a problem. What you need to do is put it onto a level surface. I'm using my shooting board here, a flat bench or a piece of glass would be excellent. Then find yourself a shim and just mark around the bottom of all the legs with the table in the same position. Then you can just saw off the ends and you'll know that it should be level. Finally, I bevel the ends of the legs just to prevent them breaking out if they get dragged across the floor. Then I can assemble it to see what it looks like. Before taking it apart again and giving it a finish. I'm going to use a lacquer finish on this one, so a coat of sanding sealer followed by a couple of coats of lacquer. But you could equally use a shellac or an oil finish, whichever you prefer. And being knocked down, I can take it apart and store it or move it very easily. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this build, and I hope you've learnt a few things along the way. Next, of course, I'll be building a similar table out of oak, and we'll be trying some more traditional joinery. See you then. Please take a moment to like, comment and subscribe, and follow me on social media for extra photos and videos from the workshop. Cheerio!